Hello, Steve White, Trek Boy 89 for Steve Arts 89. Well, we've got some good news in the world of Star Trek comics. IDW's two ongoing Star Trek titles are both being ended. They've failed, which is understandable because they were awful, and I'm kind of glad this has happened. The first one was like supposed to be the new ongoing Star Trek title now, and they just called it Star Trek. It basically put together a bunch of random characters on a new ship. They had Captain Cisco returning and captaining it when he really should have been left in Deep Space Nine. They didn't do a good job of answering what happened after that, and it was all about war and religion and things that aren't Star Trek, and it was just really un-Star Trek. And then they did another even more un-Star Trek series called Defiant, where they had Worf captaining the Defiant, and they had again ragtag group of rebel Starfleet officers who have gone against Starfleet and are doing their own thing because apparently they just think Star Trek is Star Wars, and they have to make the Starfleet the enemy, and that the future and stuff, it hasn't gotten better and everything's the same as it is now, and just have contemporary problems in the future. It's just not Star Trek. That was awful. They've both folded, so I'm really glad, because who would want to read that? That's not Star Trek. So what they've done now is they're announcing another couple of series. One kind of interesting, it's called Voyager Homecoming, and it's based on the novel, but apparently it's a different story. And they're also doing a Star Trek Strange New Worlds ongoing series or miniseries, because I think now they've returned to miniseries now, because they were doing miniseries for a while, and they're all based on TV shows that we know, the original series Next Generation, Voyager, Enterprise, Deep Space Nine, and they were interesting, and they did year 4 and 5 of the original Star Trek. Now where they started to go wrong was they started to focus more on the Borg, and they went really hard on the Mirror Universe. It's like every comic now was a Mirror Universe comic. It's like they were in love with the Mirror Universe as opposed to the Star Trek universe, because the Mirror Universe is basically a dystopian version of Star Trek, which seems to be what non-Star Trek fans and generic science fiction fans think Star Trek should be, because that's the kind of science fiction they like. So because they don't like Star Trek because it's optimistic and set in a utopian future with aspirational characters and so forth, they don't like that, so they have to try and turn everything into some dark dystopian world full of anti-heroes and people on the outsides of the establishment, and just it's not Star Trek. So these failed. I'm glad they failed. A lot of people are blaming Heather Antor, I think her name was, or Antos, because she took over in 2022 and made a lot of these changes, and I'm just glad that they're course correcting and they're going back to the miniseries, because the miniseries kind of works because they do an episode of like 4 or 6 episodes issues, and then they release a trade. And a lot of times I didn't collect the real single comics anymore. I just wait and get the trades of the interesting ones, and I've got a stack of them. But I haven't bought anything since the Star Trek year 4 and year 5, the last ones I did. And I've had a few interesting ones like New Voyages and some random one-shots and little miniseries stuff, continuing on stuff from Deep Space Nine and Voyager that were all very interesting. But they sort of abandoned all that and just went with this ongoing, very anti-Star Trek shows that seemed to sort of follow the New Trek approach of just do everything but Star Trek, just throw everything at the wall, see what hits, make the Federation the bad guys, make the future dark, make all the problems we've got today mirrored in the future of Earth, instead of being analogy or allegory or something like that, and use outside relationships with aliens and that. Instead, it was all the problems from today are just gone into the future, and nothing's gotten any better, and we're just dealing with the same stuff, and they're just really uninspired and just really not Star Trek. So I'm glad it's over. I'm glad it died. I just wish the TV series had gone through this process as quickly, because we're still waiting for someone at the studio to get that no one wants the current contemporary style of Star Trek, and they want to go back to actual episodic science fiction adventure set in a utopian future of aspirational characters. That's what Star Trek is, and they apparently don't know that, and they still haven't gotten it. They're still struggling to work this out, whereas at least the comic realm, they were doing it really well for a while. They started to go wrong, and then they went really wrong, and now they've course corrected after 2 years. The TV series, it's been I think 7 or 8 years, and they're still trying to negotiate with Kurtzman to create an actual Star Trek show, and I think they've sort of given him the ultimatum: give us Legacy or something that resembles Star Trek, or you don't get to continue your contract. Like, of course. So I doubt he can do that on many levels creatively, production-wise, because a lot of the crew won't come back without Terry Metalis for Legacy, which is sort of the only thing that they could sort of do. So I don't know, but either way, the comics are starting over again with some series based on the shows that we know and love. They're also doing Red Shirts, though, which could be a really bad Lower Decks kind of parody, but it may be a serious look at the security teams, so it's hard to tell. It might actually be quite worthwhile, or it could be just a bad joke every episode where someone, if someone from one of the Red Shirts dies or something. It could be really bad, but we'll see. I'm going to go. Feel free to share, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think of this new direction for the Star Trek comics through IDW.